Hi everyone, it's Monica, and welcome back to Tailor-Made Cards for You. Well, I don't know if you are aware, but there are urban myths when it comes to crafting. And one of the urban myths that I heard is that the dollar store paper, the poster board, works exactly the same way as the alcohol ink, the Yupo paper that we use with our alcohol inks. Now, I don't know about you, but that just seemed a little bit too good to be true. Yupo paper, if you've ever used it, is a non-porous, I don't want to say it's paper because it's more like plastic, but it works really well with your alcohol inks and it absorbs it really nicely. But it's a little expensive. So if we can find another alternative, such as the dollar store paper, that would work exactly like Yupo paper, I think this would be a game changer. So of course I had to check it out. So I went to my local dollar store and I bought some of that poster board and I cut it down to size. Now the Yupo paper is on the right and the dollar store paper is on the left. So I wanted to do a comparison to see exactly what kind of results I would get and if they truly did react the same. Now, when I started, the first thing that I noticed is that my Yupo paper is a little bit more translucent. So it's thinner, you can see it through it a little bit more, and the poster board paper is thicker. I mean, it's poster board paper, so it is going to be a little bit thicker. But it was really smooth on the surface, almost like photo paper. And so I went ahead and I cut them down and I put them side by side. And as you see, I'm just adding different colors of alcohol ink. Now, if you look at them, you get almost the same reaction. I mean, you get a little bit more spreading with the Yupo paper. As you can see, the spreading on the Yupo paper is almost completely full as far as coverage. But on the left side, which is the dollar store paper, it's not moving as easily as the Yupo paper does. But I still think it's a pretty good coverage. I mean, you can still get those big circles that you get with the Yupo paper. And when you put one color into another color, it does spread out and absorb. So I went ahead and I added a little bit more blending solution just to see what kind of reaction I would get. And as you can see, they both reacted pretty well. So I was actually kind of happy with what I was seeing. There is a difference. I won't say that there isn't a difference because there definitely is a difference. But as far as the reaction and creating a background, it worked pretty much the same. Now, because the Yupo paper is a little bit more slicker, I think that's why the alcohol inks are moving a little bit quicker around the surface of the paper. And when I actually picked them up just to see how the dripping would be, I found that the Yupo paper actually dripped a little bit better than the dollar store paper. But when we're creating these backgrounds, we're not necessarily looking for it to drip. I just wanted to kind of do a really good comparison to see what kind of results I would get. So this is where I picked it up. And as you can see on the Yupo paper, it dripped pretty nicely. So it's a real slick surface. And the alcohol ink moves really nicely. But when I picked up the dollar store paper, while it did move, it didn't move as quickly until I actually added a little bit more of the blending solution. Then I really got some movement there. Now, the next thing that I wanted to test is I wanted to see how much of that alcohol ink would actually lift up using a baby wipe. And it wasn't really a baby wipe that I was working. I was using one of those disinfectant wipes because it had a little bit of alcohol in it, and that would help to actually lift some of that alcohol ink. So I just got one of my stencils and I put it over my Yupo paper, and as you see, it picked up pretty nicely. And then I did the same thing with the dollar store paper. Now, warning here, if you don't like to have messy stencils, I wouldn't recommend this because alcohol ink does stain. And I'm going to have a pretty colorful stencil when I'm done here. But the messiness I don't mind the messiness. You know that I'm a grungy crafter, so if it's a little bit messy, as long as it's clean, I don't mind the look of mess. Okay, so as you can see, they kind of look the same. Definitely the Yupo paper is a little bit lighter, but I think that's because it's more of a translucent paper. And then the dollar store paper is a little bit darker. It dried up really nicely. It wasn't sticky. Both of them felt just about the same. Now, the next thing I wanted to test, of course, is how good my stamping would be on both of these pieces of paper. We are stampers, so of course we want to stamp our backgrounds. So I just got one of my oversized stamps along with my black archival ink, and I just covered the stamp. And then I'm going to take my Yupo paper as well as my dollar store paper, and I'm just going to place it right over the stamp and get some an image on my background. Now I know it's not going to be perfect because I'm not using a stamp platform. I'm not using any sort of block. I'm just using my fingers and I'm just putting it over the stamp and pushing down. But it's a background, so I wasn't overly concerned about it being perfect. So I just made sure that I did get some ink all over the paper, and as you can see, it did transfer pretty nicely. So I went ahead and I did the same thing with my Yupo paper. I went ahead and I added a little bit more of the Archival ink, and then I did the same effect with my Yupo paper. Just placed it right over my stamp, rubbed a little bit to get the transfer, and again, the transfer was pretty good. If you want a more crisp transfer, of course, you're going to use a stamp platform, your Misty, something like that, so that way you can stamp it over and over again. Now, one thing I will say is that the Yupo paper, because it was thinner, you can see the image a little bit better, but that's just coloring here. The dollar store paper is darker, so you're not going to see the image as vividly as you are with something that's a little bit lighter. And then I just took my heating tool to dry up the ink, just because I didn't want it to smear, and also I wanted to see how the heating tool would react with both pieces of paper, and both were fine. There wasn't any melting, they didn't curl up, they took the heat pretty well. So while there were some slight differences, I would say overall you can pretty much get the same results. So if you do need an alternative to Yupo paper, the dollar store poster boards might be a good alternative. So let me know what you think about the comparison. Again, the Yupo paper is on the right, and then the dollar store is on the left. And as you see, I did go ahead and make a couple of cards to see that both backgrounds really worked well. There wasn't really one difference to the other once I matted it and put it on the cardstock. So hopefully this dollar store alternative will be something useful for you. All right, everybody. Thanks so much for stopping by, and we'll see you again next time.